Welcome to In Her Company, a global platform for women discussing how they create, build, and live. I am In Her Company's founder and creator. I am also a published author, consultant to multi-passionate women with huge vision, and socialpreneur. My name is Chris Vaughn. Welcome. We are discussing strategy and marketing with Ellie White-Stevens, creative director of Dirt1X, the marketing agency she birthed in 2009 in the midst of the recession. Ellie and her agency have won multiple awards for their work, assisting small businesses with growth strategies, full implementation through the sustainable marketing system, creating compelling sales materials that sets brands apart, contributing to their longevity. She joins us today to share her marketing genius. Ellie, welcome to In Her Company.
Oh, Chris, it's such a delight to be with you. Thank you so much.
So let's get right into it. Now, marketing, we hear that term all the time, but marketing is such a vast field. Can you give us your definition of what marketing is and its significance today?
Marketing is what you do to find, to sell to, and to keep your clients. So there's never been a more important time to focus on marketing in a recession. So history has proven us that businesses that advertise, they increase their market share for after it's all over. I'll give you an example. In 1929, Kellogg's and Post were in a close race for the breakfast cereal market share. And during the Great Depression, Kellogg's advertised and Post cut back. Kellogg's emerged with category dominance, and they still hold that some 90 years later. And you think, okay, well, that's like 90 years ago, right, Ellie? Like, that's a long time ago. Harvard Business Review also found this to be true in their study of 200 companies after our last recession. Advertising, it's a bit of a dirty word in marketing, right? Like, nobody wants to say, I'm going to go advertise because, advertising sounds expensive, right? But there are new and different ways of quote unquote advertising that are digital, that are effective. I'll just give you one example. My agency, Dirt1X, we do something called retargeting, which is a relatively new term in marketing, especially for the small business. People haven't heard of it, but that's that whole thing with Google where if you go to somebody's website or to their Facebook page or you go to Facebook in general, that the ads start to follow you around, like you see it everywhere, right? That's retargeting. Yeah. So, it feels like, but good marketing when it's really working makes you feel like God himself is speaking to you because you see it everywhere.
Right, right. And traditionally, smaller businesses haven't been able to participate in those things either, though.
That's right. It's just not available, but we're doing that kind of thing for the small business, things like retargeting, because I just feel like a small business deserves the same chance that a big business gets.
Exactly. Exactly. To level the playing field. And it's interesting that you use the Kellogg and Post as the example, because I remember watching that story play out. There was a series that ran called The Foods That Made America. There was a lot going on there between Kellogg and Post, but it was an interesting story. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They did win the war. And it was actually Post's daughter that is the reason why we have Bird's Eye today. So, if you see that, The Foods That Made America, it was an excellent series.
Oh, I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So your business, it was birthed in the midst of a recession. And I think it's kind of ironic, here we are at this point in history. So it's quite timely that we're having this discussion. What three things do you attribute with being critical to your success? And you have a background in something else, so why didn't you just walk away given the challenge?
I'm going to attribute it to hunger, and I'll explain that. So when I launched my business, my husband's income, it would pay for all of our bills. It was going to pay the mortgage, the light bill, et cetera. But if we wanted to eat, I had to make some money, and I just happened to like food with my meals. So
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, right? Doesn't everybody? So failure for me was just not an option. So that's the first thing. It was hunger, and I didn't give myself an out, And then second, I really like to win. So, it's just a thing for me. So every new client, every new project I got, it was a win for me, and it kept me going. And it was also a major win for me when my clients succeed. So every time they would, get more business and the strategies we would create would work, I would get to win when they would win. And then the third thing that I attribute to my success, and I think this is really important for every business, as quickly as I could, I hired people to handle the things that I was less good at. For example, the very first thing I passed off was my business accounting. There's a time in my business when I was doing the sales, the project management, the creative direction, the art direction, the invoicing, the bookkeeping. I had some weeks where I literally lost count at the number of hours I was working, somewhere past 90 hours. I think, the thing about it is like the entrepreneur life, if you're launching a business, if you are in launch mode, it takes just such determination. And especially when you launch in a recession, like if we're speaking to some folks who are listening right now and they're thinking, gee, I'd really like to start a business. The good news is it's never going to be as hard as it is today. Like the hard that it will be this year to launch a business will never be that hard again, because this is going to be, a difficult economy. The good news is that it'll get easier. How about that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is, that was for me, 10 years ago in the midst of that recession. That's launching a business. How you run a business takes its own new set of challenges. The entrepreneur launch of a business is one thing, and then running it and managing employees is a whole nother game. So it's its own set of challenges, And,
that's, you see that even in social media, the focus is so much on the launch, and you hear about people launching new projects, launching new businesses, launching, new ventures, whatever they may be. A significant lower amount is on the actual running. So we tend to look at launch as the destination. It's like, okay, I'm here, I open my doors, whether virtually or brick and mortar. And then it's like, okay, that's that day. After that happens, what are you going to do to sustain the business? And let me just, before we move on to the next question, let me ask your take on something, because small business owners, especially solopreneurs, when they hear to hire people to handle things you're not good at, they kind of cringe. A lot of that is because they are new. Their profit margins are minimal, if none at all, and they want to grow, but they're not quite ready to go ahead, or don't think that they can, for that matter, actually hire someone. What is a good starting point for them towards doing that? And what is some advice that you would give them?
The advice that I got, because I hired some consultants on the way. I attended some seminars. I listened to some experts. And universally, the first person that a solopreneur should hire is a virtual assistant. Getting rid of the small things like confirming your appointments and making sure that someone is handling the small office work. Now, there's a whole host of businesses that can't survive with virtual people. There's a whole host of businesses that require an enormous amount of startup revenue so that you can hire initially and have the team before you start working. But for a lot of entrepreneurs, for consultants and coaches and all kinds of businesses like that, it's not so. You can start with just you. But the first person you want to hire is a virtual assistant that'll enable you to only purchase a segment of their hours. Maybe 5 hours a week to start, and then you go to 10 hours a week, and then suddenly you're at 20. And by the time you hit 20 hours a week, you can probably hire someone who's closer to you that's less virtual, that will help you to organize your office in addition to, your home office, even in addition to doing some of those kinds of things for you. So, I mean, I the very first thing that I hired, apart from outsourcing bookkeeping, again, because you also need to look at your own set of strengths, right?
Right.
So maybe you're really good at, maybe you're not like me. Maybe bookkeeping just comes easy to you, and, crunching the numbers, makes you happy, and you're happy to handle your own bookkeeping for a while. Great. Mm-hmm. Well, what are the things that you can outsource so that you have more time for your sales and marketing? Because cash flow is king, and without it, your business will die. If your business, a dead business is a dead business. You can't,
right. Right.
It's like you have to have sales, and you need to create time in your schedule to do your marketing and your sales, especially when you're a solopreneur. If it's all on your shoulders, then you have got to make sure that you've put pads on your shoulders to give yourself some levity.
So in a way, just, during our discussion, do you think that you were competing with your own self? And that's what.
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And while I wasn't good at the bookkeeping, I was good at keeping an eye on my sales and my numbers and my, how am I doing from 1 month to the next, from 1 year to the next,
right.
From one, tracking those things year over year and taking a look at it. Yeah. And, it's enormously satisfying to see your business succeed. And, and I really want to speak that to your entrepreneurs who are listening to this, to your business owners. If you look at what you have accomplished in your business, and so you might be having some people who, they have some employees, they have some stuff, and, we're about to step through, difficult economic times. But if you look back on what you have accomplished, you can know what you can head into and be successful at. Like if you did it before, you can do it again,
Right. Right.
That's the thing. That's the message, I think there.
And on that note, positioning is also very important. And as you mentioned, even more so given critical times. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs or business owners on identifying their place?
I think that there are two things that are important about identifying your place as a business owner. And the first is knowing who your ideal client is. Now, ideal to me is defined with two criteria: those that make you the most money and are a pleasure to work with. So, for example, right. So, right. Like, don't replicate the things that you don't want to see again. So, for example, at Dirt1X, we recognize that some of our best clients are medical and quasi-medical practices. Mm-hmm. So, what we know about those practices that we serve is that they're competitive in their market, or they're in a competitive market, I should say, and they usually require people to self-pay for services. So I'll give you an example of that. That would be like my client, Mahaffey Orthodontics, mm-hmm. right? They're in a competitive market. There are other orthodontists out there, and people usually have to self-pay for their services, right? Like, because even with a little bit of, dental insurance or whatever, full orthodontia is never covered, by hardly anybody, unless, I don't know what kind of amazing insurance you have to have that fully covered. But, for the most part, people are self-paying.
Right.
So the second thing is that it's really important to be able to tell the compelling stories of the difference you make for your clients. That could be testimonials, it could be case studies, it might be feature stories, it could be videos. It's whatever will make you shine that has some social proof. And you need social proof to add to credibility for your business, because it's all well and good for me to say, hey, Chris, I'm super, super good at marketing, but it's a whole nother thing if I hit play on the video of the testimonial of Dr. Mahaffey telling you about how amazing I am at marketing, right?
Right. Because that's someone who has gone through the experience that you hope your new and potential clients are going to have. So that's different than you saying something and people reading a list of credentials. That's sort of like your work in action, right?
Exactly. Now, I have had some really, really new entrepreneurs say to me, well, Ellie, what do I do? What stories do I tell when I don't have any clients yet? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you're in business, then you have served someone at some point to do something, right? Like, you don't usually step into business without some experience in your field or some.
Exactly.
So, like, there's always someone that you can pull from to pull a case study, to develop a story of how you have helped someone. And my advice to people is if they don't have any stories, then go do something for free for a nonprofit, especially this year.
Yes.
Because our nonprofits, like all their galas have been canceled, all their events are, they are going to need free services and help more than ever before. So this is the year. This is the year to go help somebody.
And, it always is, because I served over the years and had some amazing experiences from the multiple boards and committees that I've served on. And a lot of those people are still friends to this day. We can still call on each other. And these are fellow business owners in addition to the organizations themselves. So there is a benefit in that, or not benefit, there is definitely truth in that. By serving others, it does come full circle.
Absolutely. And, even for a person in business, if you're asked to serve on a nonprofit board this year, this is the year to do that too, because you need to have more ways to get your name out there that are positive to you.
Right.
I call it profile raising, and it's something that really works to raise your reputation in the community.
Of course. You mentioned social proof, so let me throw this question in here. So you have advertising, branding, marketing, public relations, and I can keep going. So what do you look for in order to build a cohesive strategy for your client?
Okay, so this is really important. Different kinds of businesses sell with different sales relationships. Okay, so I have an infographic that I'm going to share with your audience. They're going to be able to easily log on to pull that down off my website. All they're going to have to do is go to dirt1x.com/podcast, and they can sign up and get that. And what that infographic shows, what that infographic shows is that your choice of marketing mix depends on the kind of sales relationship you have with your potential customers. Let me give you some examples. If you have a traditional business, and like you mentioned earlier, sometimes people call those a brick and mortar. I think that phrasing can be a little archaic because, like, who actually builds out a brick anymore? But anyway, right? So today's traditional business sells through advertising and price. This is going to, this makes sense to everybody because they know about the McDonald's dollar menu, but it might also be like when the sign over at, Smith and Davis in Fayetteville, Georgia says buy one, get one half off on shoes. And, for people who don't know about Smith and Davis, that's a local, department store that's only unique to our area here in the South Crescent of Atlanta where I live. Okay. So that's, they've got this extensive selection of shoes and a really nice department store. So they're selling based on advertising and price when they put that out there. Now, if you have what I call the mod, you're selling based on online community. So that might be somebody's, personal Etsy shop. It could be even an Amazon storefront where they request for people to leave reviews. It might even be someone who gets a blogger or an influencer to endorse their products. Okay. That would be the mod. Okay. And then there's something called the rep. And in the rep, you're selling based on personality. So I guarantee you, Chris, in your audience right now, who will be listening to this podcast, will be at least one insurance agent. So, in her company, there are lots of insurance agents, right? Right. And these folks, they have to be out there networking because insurance products don't vary too much from one company to the next. You're going to be looking at the same, this is the deductible, that's the deductible. This is the coverage, that's the coverage, right? So, insurance agents sell based on personality. You buy from your insurance agent because you like her, because you like him.
Exactly.
Okay. The last category, and I feel like this is really important category, I call it the civic, and it's where you sell based on reputation. This is actually what you're doing right now, Chris, for you, is you have set yourself up as someone who brings expertise to people about business through your podcast. You're creating a reputation for excellence in business that will serve you well for people who want to work with you later, with your company, with what you do. When we talk about public relations, these people are the folks for whom public relations creates the most possibilities. But every business person can use aspects of each of these to create customers, who choose you not because of what you sell, but because of who you are. And that's a reputation-based sale. So I'm going to circle back around to my client, Mahaffey Orthodontics, and give you guys an example, right?
Okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, Mahaffey Orthodontics, they have an amazing program that we created for them called the All Smiles Award. It's given to students in local schools who make other people smile. Basically, it's an award for character. Dr. Mahaffey gets promotional consideration, banners, announcements at award ceremonies for students in grades 4 through 8, which is his exact target market. And this program is currently in 37 schools.
Wow.
Yeah, and my company coordinates all of that for them. We do the calling and the coordination with the schools and all the awards pieces. But another thing that we do is put a story about it in a local publication, listing all the winners and talking about how, Dr. Mahaffey is pleased to support this programming. So he gets PR, he gets name recognition, he gets advertising, he gets a lot of different aspects of the thing all in one program that we do.
Yeah, it's quite comprehensive.
It really is. Like it's a really comprehensive program. So yeah, that's the kind of thing, like, how do you get in front of that ideal client that we talked about earlier? And how do you, build a cohesive strategy? It takes aspects of advertising, branding, marketing, public relations, social media, and. It's doing all of those things, but doing them in a way that makes sense for the selling relationship that you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so tell me, and you gave some great examples, but is depending on the business that you're in, like you use the insurance agents as an example, these type of strategies and how you're selling, do these change over time, or do you find that through the course of the career or per the industry, this is, the one thing, like the insurance agents will only be the rep or the representative model? Like they
So you're selling, yes. So the longer that you're in business, the more likely it is that you will have a reputation-based sale. Because you'll have built a reputation, and you'll have done that through things like community leadership, like I said, like serving on a board, or, being the chair of this committee, or leading that nonprofit fundraiser, or donating in this big way, or, like there's a whole lot of ways to raise your reputation, to do what I call profile raising. There's a lot of ways to do that. Every business ought to be looking at ways to do that. And even your large corporations, you'll find that they do things to increase their reputation-based sales. Like the one that comes to my mind right off the top of my head that got so much social media when they first started doing it, and then other companies said, oh yeah, that social responsibility thing makes a lot of sense, is the Tom's Shoes Company, where you buy a pair of shoes and a pair of shoes gets donated in the third world. Like, right. Anyone who, and of course you read about it and you're like, oh yeah, if you've been to the third world, or or you read about it, you find that there are all kinds of ailments that children get because they, cut their feet and get, bugs in their feet, and all kinds of problems because they don't have shoes. Like when you solve a world problem for a corporation, when you solve a world problem and do your social responsibility correctly, you raise the reputation of your company, and then people want to buy, in this case, your Tom's shoes. Now, that's, of course, a product-related thing. You'll find a lot of businesses who are not selling products, who are selling services, will also, find a way to give back. And a lot of times they give back in ways that make sense for the kind of business they're in. Like Dirt1X, my company, we do like 5 or 6 nonprofit fundraisers, sometimes as many as 8 in a year. Like I think last year it might have been closer to 8.
Lot.
Yeah, and we will do like their invitations and their materials, and we'll do on-site materials. And I actually have one that I do every year that I'm the chair of through the Businesswomen of Fayette and Coweta. It's called Oh Christmas Tea. And I've been doing Oh Christmas Tea. I think this is our 11th year of Oh Christmas Tea, although don't quote me, it might be 12. I think it's 11.
No, I saw that
I think
last
it's 11.
year because our family had went to Noonan and we saw the poster on what is it? I love Thai food on garlic Thai in Noonan, and we saw the poster there and was like, oh, Christmas tea, and I wanted to go, but our schedule didn't line up with that. So okay, now I know.
Well, see, and yes, and we did. We have our flyers, our posters. You'll have to come this next year, Chris. It's quite a beautiful gala, and hopefully with the economic climate and the I'm hoping by next winter social gatherings
will be ready
safe
to celebrate
for people.
Yes, yes. Send me an invite. I definitely will. It sounds like this is part of your own platform building. And thanks for recognizing that the civic model is what I do, because I thoroughly enjoy building platforms for women, giving them a voice and an opportunity to be heard, as well as the social enterprise aspects like the projects that we take on. But everybody knows that they need to build a platform around themselves and or their business. Can you tell us why social media alone is not a replacement for marketing strategy? Because so many people either forego, and it may sound outdated, but I see a change coming back to that because you don't control so much with social media, where people aren't having their own websites, where they're relying on Facebook and, Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. Social media alone is not a replacement for marketing strategy. So why is that?
Okay, so I think you're so wise to say that, because I think that social media is a key component to an overall marketing strategy, right? But you really don't want to put all of your proverbial eggs in one basket. I've been doing this long enough that I remember what happened the last time Facebook majorly changed their algorithm. Mm-hmm. Suddenly engagement wasn't enough, and if you didn't advertise, nobody saw your posts. And additionally, in the last 2 years, they created a major issue, and they created a major issue with this without a lot of people realizing that it happened, especially small business people who didn't have a consultant, right? So mm-hmm. They did is they created an issue with posts that ask for likes, shares, and comments on Facebook. So what happens when people ask for those things, like shares and comments, is it deep sixes future posts into the netherworld, right? They're just gone. Like wow. Suddenly your connections drop to nothing, and people wondered what happened, and they just they don't like it. They think it's like like baiting or something like that. So and then here's the other kicker.
Wait a minute, isn't the feature? Isn't that one of the options that you get? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can like posts, you can share posts, and you can comment on posts, but you can't ask for those things if you're on Facebook. Wow. If you're making a post on Facebook, you can't ask. If you're in business, you cannot ask somebody to like, share, or comment on your post. And the businesses that do it are making a big mistake. Yeah. No, still you comment, but don't ask for them. Don't ask.
I mean that I'm gonna keep my comments to myself on this show. I'm going to let you just answer.
Okay. All right. So now and here's the other kicker. If you want to reach Zennials, so these are the kids who are, I say kids because my kids are Zennials, right? I have a 16-year-old. He's 16. Like at this recording date, he is 16 today. This is his birthday.
Happy birthday.
I have yeah, I know, right? Happy birthday, Nathan. Okay, so I've got a 16-year-old and I've got an 18-year-old, and they're Zennials. And
yeah,
them,
me too. Me too.
Okay, then there you go. So none of them are on Facebook. Right? None of the Zennials.
Yeah,
so
sure
I even spoke, and that's my kids, but none of their friends are on Facebook. And I spoke to a local high school marketing class and took a poll, and 0% of the class were on Facebook. And actually, less than half were on Instagram. So if you think about what the future is of social media, it's going to change. So what I tell you today about what works today on social media may not work in 10 years. So Facebook is still a good game. for people to be on, especially people who are marketing to consumers. Like Facebook's still a good thing to be on, and it's still a good thing to invest in. But if you're thinking that whatever product or service you have is something that you're going to want to market to a younger generation in the future, you got to be able to move and roll and change it up and be prepared.
Because that's one of the things that I tell people, my clients that I work with, and just in general conversations, is that the way that social media works today, you can spend so much time learning social media and all the changes and everything than you can actually about learning about your own business. And I don't think that is necessarily healthy. I encourage people.
Well, this is the point for. Yes. And this is the thing. This is why people need to have somebody like my agency handling their social media, so we can worry about making sure we don't make mistakes that, banish your post to the netherworld. Right. We can make sure we don't do that to you, and then you can go manage your business. And that's the whole thing about like outsourcing all the things that are possible for a business to outsource, so that you're not,
because
so you're worrying about core business.
Becomes overwhelming. Yeah. You can spend forever on admin work and never get to your business, but social media can take on a life of its own too. So you can just imagine, keeping up with the changes in addition to what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. That's not a good recipe for anyone.
True. And, and I need to add for people too, because like, I don't know what percentage of the people that we're going to be talking to on your podcast are marketing to consumers, but for those who are out there and they are B2B people, I don't want your business to business people thinking that solely marketing on Facebook, that's going to be effective for them. They really need to think about LinkedIn instead. But you have to be careful with LinkedIn, because a lot of people do LinkedIn marketing and they use bots and things that spam people. Yeah. And I mean, people are sick to death of being spammed on LinkedIn. Yeah. So you really have to think, like, when you're going into social media on a thing like LinkedIn, you have to think about, like, how are you going to do relationship building on that platform? Right. The marketing that works the best sometimes, Chris, is the marketing that takes the most work. Like, and you don't want to tell that to people. Like, in my ideal world, I'd just say, I'm going to make it all easy for you. And the truth is, we make a lot of things easy for people. Right? We handle large swaths of marketing for people. But there's certain kinds of marketing that really take, like, one-on-one attention. You think too about, like, the handwritten notes of this world, the personalized email that was not sent through an email marketing campaign, the actual physical phone calls of this world. Like, those are all marketing, and those are all really, really effective, especially for sales. So, the actual connections with people are so vital. And, we don't want to lose sight of that people want to be treated like people. Yeah, because they're hungry for that, even if they don't articulate that, but that's what's missing. That's what's missing is a human touch in a technological world. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that's exactly right. I feel like I should quote you. I need to write that down. Feel free. What's missing is a human touch in a technological world. You all need to turn that into a meme. Everybody, Chris Vaughn said. Everybody turn it into a meme and put it on your Facebook. That would be great. You mentioned several times during our conversation that part of marketing is telling compelling stories. How can entrepreneurs partner with professionals such as yourself to tell a better story? So here's the thing. And, not to make fun of people, but I'm going to make fun of all people, okay? Go for it. Every one of your listeners who graduated from high school thinks that they can write, because we all had to get through, like, senior year English composition. Oh yeah, literature, right? Composition 1 and 2. Yeah. And then a lot of us too. We went on to college, and not everybody went to college, but a lot of us went on to college, and we had to take more English writing classes, right? So we all think to ourselves, I can string words together, right? Right. Like everybody thinks they can do that, but the thing about it is telling a compelling story in marketing is just not the kind of writing that they teach you in high school or even English in college. Now, maybe if you took a public relations class or some communications classes that focused on, I majored in communications, and most of the writing that I did, even in my communications major, is not the kind of writing that I have to do today for my clients. It's like
Really?
along the way, it was learning on the job of doing. I did nonprofit corporate communications for 3 years, and then I worked in local media advertising. I learned to write brochure copy and newsletter copy and stories and web copy, and I learned to write advertising content like again and again and again. It was doing those jobs that taught me the writing that I needed to know to do what I do now. Those 10 years, and then these next 10 years of doing this agency. For 20 years, I've been doing this writing. But this is not the kind of writing that I was taught in school.
And it kind of makes you wonder, it's like, what was I learning if this isn't relevant to my clients and the work that I'm doing?
Exactly. So at Dirt1X, we pride ourselves on writing stories that are both readable and interesting. And that's the thing. Like, it's got to be readable and interesting, but it's only just some creative writing if it doesn't help to brand and market the business. So
that's the key point.
That's the thing.
That's the key point, because sometimes you are looking at someone's promotional pieces and you could tell they got lost in story. Or
they're clever but not effective, right?
Yeah, clever but not effective. And it's like, okay. And, I guess that's one thing, that to give kudos for. It's like, okay, you were trying to be relevant. It, is cute, but clever does not convert into sales. It stays at the point of being clever. And that's not what you want if you're looking to scale your business or you're looking to draw the right clientele.
Exactly. Now, we talked about this earlier, so I think it's really important to reiterate that part of being a professional in business is knowing that you need other professionals to make it work. So that's why outsourcing a marketing department to a firm like ours, like Dirt1X, can be so helpful, because, we've got a whole team of people to get it done. The graphic designer, the videographer, the mail house, the project managers, the retargeters, the search engine optimizers, the social media experts, and on and on. So, but even if somebody doesn't give me a call after this podcast or, go to that link that I'm going to share again soon.
Do, because you have a wealth of information to share beyond this. Even your website, you could tell that. So yeah, I definitely hope so.
Yeah. Like even if somebody doesn't hire us though, right? Because, you don't have to hire me and it's not going to hurt my feelings,
Right.
But having professionals to do your work makes you look and sound more professional. And I'm big on this in my entire life, right? I'm totally not a DIYer. I've got people to do my lawn maintenance, so why... I know, right? We don't even mow our lawn.
I want a DIY. I will do that. Oh my gosh, just to, for the learning experience. Some things, of course, I won't touch, but I will DIY. Oh my gosh.
No, Chris, no.
I will say that over the past several years, some things I don't do, I let go, but I just love that. I'm like, yeah, I could do that. No, it's like, now let me call someone.
Look, if I'm going to have my house taken care of by professionals, I am definitely going to have my business taken care of by professionals.
Right. Right.
So, and I think that there are some key professionals that businesses really need to be thinking about. Like, you really need to have a lawyer. You need to have legal contracts for the business that you do. Right. You really need to have, for me, you need the professional like bookkeeping and accounting.
Right.
And I have both a bookkeeping firm. I use vPro Vantage. They're excellent. I can recommend them. vPro Vantage for my bookkeeping. I have an accountant for my taxes. There are those key things. And then, within my agency, I don't just throw things together. My graphic design is all handled by my own team. And I know that's like, my cobbler's kids needing to wear some shoes, and they do most of the time. But yeah, it's about being professional and stepping out and being
that's
out
just
there.
like the same in writing. It's like, by all means, write your story, but that's the difference when you actually publish a book is the difference between you doing your own self-edits and having a professional editor do it. You get a totally different product. So
I could see that. The better thing is always to, always err on the side of being more professional.
Right.
And yet again, like for your small business who are making those choices of like, what can I afford? Do the most professional thing that you can afford.
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
Until you can afford the more professional thing than that, go from max out your professionalism where possible.
We all desire to do things right the first time. And you've mentioned in the intro, I introduced you as creative director of Dirt1X. And of course, you've referred to your own company throughout this conversation. I'm going to let you explain it, but is there some other significance to your company's name, Dirt1X?
Yeah, thanks. So Dirt1X does stand for, just like you said, do it right the first time. So that's DIRT, the number 1, the letter X. So Dirt1X. But, I also like to think about how if a business is growing, if they're in a growth mode, that growing things take good dirt to grow in. So that's always something that I like to think about soil. Too, that, good soil. You need that good black soil, that good rich soil to grow in. And so, so do it right the first time. Yeah. And, the other thing about that is with do it right the first time, I'm not saying that the first proof that we send someone is going to be perfect. Like that's not what we're saying. What we're saying instead is that we try to prevent people from spending what I like to call stupid money, doing marketing that's not going to work for them, not having a strategy, creating brochures that wind up in a closet, because there was no strategy behind what was going to be done with them or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like flyering every single car that you see on the parking lot. It's like, no, all of those people are not your customer. Don't ever do that.
Oh, the funny bit is I had a client who who insisted on that kind of marketing, and he actually got lawsuits threatened, and
wow,
you can't make people do the right thing, but that was not how I would have wanted him to use the postcards that we created for him. Like there had to have been a better way. And the better way is like today, direct mail actually works pretty effectively for people. And we do a lot of that for our clients because so few people are doing direct mail anymore that there's a lot less clutter in a mailbox than there used to be. So direct mail can be an effective way of marketing. Oh, everybody loves you, Chris.
I know. It's nothing like going to the mailbox and you take out the mail and then place it immediately in the trash. It's like, oh, I didn't need that. But no.
Well, I do that too with certain kinds of flyers. So yeah.
That's just like what we mentioned earlier. The website. And that's something that's probably is considered archaic, the phone calls, the direct mail, because people have gotten so far away from that, but it's effective. And you can see the response numbers there that you won't see in social media, even depending on the campaign that you're running.
Right. Well, and if you're firing, like, again, I'm not very mechanically inclined either. You're going to just think I've got no clue with sports and I'm not mechanically inclined. But I'm okay. So I'm pretty sure that with engines, they fire pistons or something like that. Okay.
Yes,
but if your engine is firing with all of the pistons at the right, I'm going to sound really dumb to somebody out there. Like you're going to have some mechanics that are going to be like, what is she talking about? if you're firing on all the parts of the engine that are supposed to fire at the same point,
you're firing on all cylinders. There you go.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. if you're doing what you're supposed to do with marketing, then the engine runs and you move forward. And and that's not to say that you're not occasionally going to have something that is less effective. Like there will be things that are less effective, but if you have enough of the right things out there, you can afford to have a dud or two here and there.
Exactly.
And ideally, you're going to use an expert like my team or somebody who will tell you things that worked for their other clients and things that they shouldn't try again. But here's the other thing that happens all the time with me. I'll have a client come in and we'll be doing our full marketing analysis, and we'll be looking at everything they did in the past. And they'll tell me something like this. They'll say, well, I advertised in this magazine and it didn't work. So, and they want to blame the magazine or whatever, right? And I'll be like, okay, well, let me take a look at it. And I can typically look at an ad and know why it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like that, if we're going to market in something, at least do it right. That's the thing about doing it right the first time. If we can, the way that we do it, if we do it correctly.
Awesome. So thank you. You have shared so much wisdom with us, but tell us what's next on the agenda for you. And do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Yeah. So first, anyone who would like that infographic that I referenced, and they can also sign up for my newsletter in that process, I want them to visit dirt1x.com/podcast to get that. Again, that's DIRT, the number one, the letter X.com/podcast, dirt1x.com/podcast. That gives everybody the chance to book a consultation with me as well, right onto my schedule if they'd like one. So if they want to meet with me and talk a little bit about marketing strategy, you can talk a little bit about recession growth marketing strategy. We can talk a little bit about, COVID response. If you're hearing this, right after this came out and you still need to put out some messaging regarding the COVID-19 for your business, that could be appropriate. But at any rate, you'll have a chance to get on my schedule, and you'll get that infographic that talks about how sales works. And so if you're listening to this, and you're like, I wanted to know about that sales relationship thing, or, they can get that graphic that way. I also, my words of wisdom. So here's the thing. People might be listening to this month's episode months from now, but at the moment we're in the middle of the Corona crisis. So for business people who are still in that with me and are listening, I want to be sure that they apply for the SBA grant and loan, where the payroll portion can be forgiven for up to 8 weeks of pay for your people.
That's excellent.
This is going to this is going to be a tough storm to weather for many businesses. So I really encourage you to avail yourself of the resources that the federal government is offering us. I'm not an accounting expert, so I can refer you to my accounting firm, vProvantage. I mentioned them before, or your local chamber of commerce. Now, our local chambers of commerce, both of them here in the area that we live, have sent out, both of the chambers that I belong to have sent out information about how to apply for some of these SBA loans and SBA grants. Like there's a $10,000 grant that you can apply for to keep your business on its feet during this time. Like if you had to shut down.
Disaster relief, right?
Yes, there's the disaster relief $10,000 grant that you can apply for. Plus there are disaster relief loans that you can apply for people who have slightly larger businesses. Like if you're carrying, and I don't mean to be giving a lot of financial advice because that's not my business. Marketing is, I promise.
Relevant now time. So.
Yeah, it really is. Like if you've got a business that has like you're carrying a lot of debt, you can apply for some of these SBA disaster relief loans and basically pay off your debt that's at a higher APR with some federal loans that are guaranteed at, I think it's under 4%. So, and they've got generous terms. Like there's just so much you can do right now to make sure that your business stays in business, that you can do financially. And then the other thing that you can do, is, book that consultation with me and we can talk about your marketing and your growth strategies. Because it's hard to, talk about growth strategies if your whole workforce has been sent home because you've been deemed non-essential by the government. Like, what do you say about that? But, yeah, I know, right? But here's the thing. My daddy.
It's essential to you, and not only you and your family, but to everyone that you employ.
Right. Well, that's right. And it matters to your clients that you stay in business, right? So back in the 70s, my daddy broke his leg. Okay. He broke his leg and he was literally laid up. He could not move. It was one of those, like, the cast is up to the hip kind of situations.
Oh.
And in that time where my dad was laid up, he created this financial plan for him and my mom that has been long lasting and effective for them. For over 40 years it has worked, and it worked for them to be able to go into retirement and have healthy retirement. So, like, he created a plan that worked in a time when he couldn't work. And so I want to encourage, if there's business owners out there, entrepreneurs who are in a time where they cannot work, okay, this is a time to create a plan for your future. And so that's why, talking to me about your marketing and making sure those things are up to date is, it's really smart. It'd be a smart time. I encourage you listeners out there, you business owners, to not give up. The world, it really needs your brand of magic right now. It needs you. And the hope and the outlook and the excellence that you bring into the world, they're going to change it for the better. You're going to make the world a better place just by being in it and making your difference for everyone.
Well, thank you so much, Ellie, not only for the infographic that you are sharing with our listeners, for the wisdom, for sharing your marketing genius. Also, I'm sure that both of us, both you and I, to any entrepreneurs and business owners out there, there will be the other side. One day we will look back and we will be on the other side of this challenge. Here's to you, your longevity, your ability to rise to the occasion, and seeing you on the other side of this challenge.
Thank you for joining us. We invite you to become part of this global platform we are building for women. Join our email list for opportunities, or contact us via the website with In Her Company as the subject to be a guest or discuss sponsorship. Tea at 2 Tuesdays, your midday social, happens at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Instagram. Join us to add margin and connection to your day and engage for impact, as submissions are now open for our anthology to support women who have escaped trafficking and aged out of orphanages. Details on each can be found at chrisbond.com. I look forward to you joining us again. My name is Chris Bond. This is In Her Company.